I've spent the last 10 years in this e-commerce game building brands. While a lot of y'all were in middle school trading Pokemon cards and listening to Chief Keef, I was in the trenches. I remember my first $1 million on the internet when I was 23 years old. I sold a business to private equity for multiple 8 figures when I was 26. I love this stuff and I'm still doing it today. I want to give you all of my lessons distilled into one video. Learn from my failures, absorb the best things I've learned over the years, and take that into practice. Buckle in, this is all free. Uncle Rob got you. Takeaway number 1, you need to treat this like a professional sport. All my athletes out there are automatically going to get this, but if you're not an athlete, don't worry. Some of the most successful people I know found their calling in the game of business. You need to go in this knowing that in the beginning, you're a rookie, you're a beginner. I mean, you can have a breakout season, but it's all about getting in the reps and keeping an extremely strong mindset throughout this entire thing. Listen, entrepreneurship comes with ups, it comes with downs. The younger that you can learn to dissociate with all of that and commit to the fucking process, the better off you're gonna be. There's days you are not gonna be feeling it, but if you can get in and keep creating and commit to process, commit to growth, that is gonna exponentially pay off down the line. You see, people see people like me, right? Traveling the world, making money on my iPhone, making money on the computer, and they just assume I was gifted or I've always been like this. But the truth is that it's been a continual process since literally day one. I didn't know shit when I got in this game, but I committed to it. I made it my life. Much like athletes do, right? If you're an NBA player, that is your job round the clock, how you eat, how you train, all the things you do in your off time. That shit matters and you need to treat the e-com game the same way. Takeaway number 2, let's round into some true business stuff here. Unit economics. You see, your business model has to work. So with any brand you're building or product that you're selling, the numbers have to actually make sense. What kind of margin are you making on your product? You see, e-com is simply a game of traffic and conversion. How much can you spend to convert a customer? And the better margin you have, the more you can spend inherently. And then there's all sorts of little levers that you tweak around that, right? How can you eke up conversion 1 or 2%? How can you find cheaper traffic? I'll talk more about that later. But the most important thing is that you have a sound underlying business at the center of all of it. I know guys who have poured into the drink world, raised hundreds of millions of dollars with a SKU that was fundamentally unprofitable. They had to get to like 300 or 400 million in revenue for it to start penciling out because they'd get acquired by someone who could make the product for cheaper. That business model ultimately didn't work out. And if you're a young hustler, if you're a guy like me, I don't raise money, I've bootstrapped all of my businesses, you get those numbers sound from the beginning and you're gonna succeed. Takeaway number 3, and this is my favorite. That's my favorite number, so it's my favorite takeaway. Do not forget this one. E-com is made by finding one fucking thing that works and juicing the fuck out of that. Don't listen to all the different voices telling you need to do a million different things. All of the money is made when you find alpha. E-com alpha, let's call it that. Right now it's TikTok. When I started on early Amazon, you could put $1 in the ad machine and make 5. I know the guys that were early on Facebook ads. One of my friends in Puerto Rico, he was making $150,000 per day because he was brand new on Facebook ads. And nobody has a step-by-step at that point, right? You're just getting in there. You're seeing that the numbers work on this thing. You're seeing this brand new opening and you are figuring that shit out. And I promise you, you can tune out every other thing you hear about e-com. E-com alpha is where multimillionaires and even freaking billionaires are made. I mean, some of the money that has been made from these early opportunities, again, TikTok being one of those, is astronomical. It's insane. It's out of this world. That's where you need to focus when you're starting your career. Tip number 4, emotion and storytelling are what ultimately wins out. You see, in this busy world, this digital world, there's all sorts of different voices pulling you in every single different direction, and that's consumer products. That's social media, that's how to make money, it's this stuff. You probably saw ads on this video, right? But the ones that succeed are able to communicate their message through a story that evokes emotion, because that's what people actually remember. If you just throw a product at someone and tell them this thing's so good, then they're not gonna buy it, right? But if you tell them a story about how this changed so-and-so's life, right? This product solved that person's problem, that's the type of information that people ultimately resonate with and will ultimately buy from. So cut everything else. Like, stop trying to yell about how good your stuff is. Just remember, humanity can be simplified in storytelling and emotion. That's how our brains work. Number 5, real freedom comes from systems, process, and scale, AKA real business. A lot of you out there dream of being a YouTuber. You guys think that's the dream career, be able to just shoot content like this, make a living, and travel the world and all that stuff. But the truth is that you're just signing up for a different version of a job. I know so many YouTubers that have had a lot of success on the platform, they've made some money, and then they ultimately burn out because they don't learn how to build a real business in the process. On the other side of that, one of my best friends, I don't need to mention him here, but he runs a faceless YouTube channel. He has 35 plus people working for him. He puts out 4 videos per week. All he has to do is show up and do the voiceover. He's got over 2 million subs. It's a profit machine, but he doesn't have a YouTube channel. What he has is a modern media company. And that right there holds true for everything. When I was building my first company, Genius, I was trying to do everything myself. Life changed when I hired a couple of my very close friends. We didn't know what we were doing at the time. Everything changes when you start to delegate and focus on bringing in talent. You see, by the end of Genius, when we were doing over 30 plus million a year, my workload was less than ever. The cliche is that I got to work on the business, not in the business. But the truth is that at that point, if you build a machine that's making you money, you can really do whatever you want, right? It's just a question of how much do you want out of your own life. Number 6, having a good product is critical, but it's not everything. Now at this point, you can refer back to number 3 to know why it's not everything, right? There's a ton of great products over the years that we've never heard of because they never found that one thing. They never found that means of scale. But the magic is when you have something that can become part of the culture or something that can become a staple in someone's life, and then you have that infinite traffic hack, right? That was Genius in a lot of ways. It was something that the market needed, natural formulas, clinically dosed, and then I had that Amazon piece of the equation, and that's what made it attractive to institutional buyers. Zoom out 8 years later and the brand is still going strong, right? Even if it's not being ran well. And that really is the beauty of this ecom thing. You can do that from really nothing, but I think it's incredibly important to get the product component right off the jump. I like this rule called the 3% rule. This is Virgil Abloh, and his basic idea, it kind of lives in between don't reinvent the wheel, but still innovate. You need to be able to make something 3% better. And that's really it. And there's so many stale industries to disrupt, right? So many conglomerates, so many old school players that have brought something to market that doesn't appeal to Gen Z or doesn't appeal to millennials or simply needs a facelift. That is the infinite alpha in this e-commerce world. Not to mention new ideas are coming to market all the time. Number 7, fuck data-driven decision-making. This is counterintuitive, and I wanted kind of an aggressive highlight for this one. Data is important, but I've realized in this e-commerce world that people marry data. And the truth with all of this, like the saying is that you're supposed to let data make all of your decisions. But what I've come to see being in this game for 10 years, people can manipulate data to tell whatever story they want to tell themselves. I think too many e-com entrepreneurs get away from trusting their gut. The longer you've been in this game, the stronger your intuition becomes. But you'll be shocked, even in the beginning, when you're just starting out, fresh eyes, right? You have this intuitive sense of what the market wants, or what kind of ads might work, or what kind of video might go viral. All of those things are inherently natural to you, right? And so don't blind yourself by pulling in a billion different data points and trying to brainwash yourself to say that you do have the good idea. Trust your gut and move forward with that. Number 8, do the small things well. And this again ties back to my anchor of point 3. Once you find something that works, putting the pieces around that and building a system or a machine is what's ultimately going to set you free. So doing all of the little details around that, whether that be setting up the proper infrastructure for your creators, right? Like maybe you need a Discord, or maybe you need your Dropbox properly organized, or maybe how you set up your Slack internally with your team. Whatever it is, as the leader, you need to make sure that you are doing all of the small things well, because that's going to reciprocate out to your team and that's going to help you scale. I built a company where we were going too fast, and that's actually my next point for you. But during that time, I took my eye off all of the little things. I was like, oh, we can get to those later. Whereas with Genius, we were growing incredibly fast, but I still took time to care about all of the small things, all of those little details. And that ultimately made my life a lot easier down the road. It made my life a lot easier when we were trying to sell to private equity. Make sure you're committed to all of the small details in the early going. And number 9, my last point for y'all, go fast and break shit. I know that kind of goes against the last thing I said, but the truth is that in this e-commerce game, things move incredibly fast and you need to be shooting shots. When I again talk back to point number 3, finding that thing that works. How do you find that thing that works? You got to think about it like a venture capital approach. A venture fund will raise $1 million, they'll invest $100,000 in 10 different companies. 9 of those will go bust, and the 10th one ends up being Google or Facebook, and they make $1 billion 10 times over. That's the approach you need to take in this game. You need to attack it with speed, you need to be trying new things, and ultimately that's what's gonna enable a level of success, and that's what's gonna help you break through. If you guys want quite literally limitless sauce, I've got $1 Million Brand Club. That's where I'm bringing back the ideas that work. That's where I'm setting strategies, setting plays, helping people build their own e-commerce empire, going from 0 to $1 million brand. I'm investing in some of these student brands, and we're truly just getting started. Top shelf forever. Love y'all.